She-Hulk flexed her comedic muscles and put everyone on notice. House of the Dragon wants things to burn, and SAG-AFTRA has a new agreement creating a 3-month conflict-free window for actors on a series. We'll discuss what all that means right after this here Jumpathons. Welcome to
LTA with
TCR
and JRB.
This is where the fun begins.
You're just not thinking fourth dimensional.
Flourish.
Peter 3.
Nom nom.
I'm vengeance.
What? Did we just become best friends?
Yup. I love you guys.
Hold on to your butts.
If we find out you have personalized license plates, you die.
Dude, I almost had you.
To that I say, all right.
Good evening. It is August 22nd somehow, and it is time for your Monday night pick-me-up where two Thunder buddies discuss all things Marvel, DC, pop culture, IP, and the latest happenings in the film industry. You're muted, Big Sexy. Live show.
Hi. Love it. On tonight's show, Thomas and I are discussing some big money moves in Hollywood, and we're going to be gushing over the first episode of She-Hulk, Attorney at Law. But before we get to all of that, Thomas, where can everybody find our show?
They can find our show because you caught me off guard.
Caught him off guard reading the script.
I was sharing our Facebook video, which is where you can find our show on Facebook, our LightsThunderAction Facebook, and the HWWS WebTV channel on Twitter and YouTube. All of those links can be found at Linktree.com/LightsThunderAction. Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow to view the live version of our show where you can interact with us. But if you don't want to look at our beautiful bearded faces, but you love to hear our beautiful bearded voices,
you can find our That's going to be a fun night, man. You can find our beautiful voices on Apple Podcasts, Good Pod, or Spotify. Please be sure to follow and subscribe on those platforms. Leave us a review, preferably 5 stars, if you will, and ask us a question, and we'll bring it right here on the show and answer it for you. So with all of that out of the way, Thomas, we did an audio-only recording last week after taking a week off. So yeah, it was basically a week break. We come back, we are having technical difficulties that led to doing an audio only recording, and then in the spirit of technical difficulties, it took until Thursday, Friday to actually get that episode up and running.
Yes. Yeah, I definitely didn't forget that it was edited and waiting in the bay to be published officially. It definitely wasn't labeled and filled out and just sitting at it in any reason.
No. So when we say that you can find us on places like Apple Podcasts, Good Pod, and Spotify, if you don't see us there by Tuesday, we're probably having some technical difficulties. So just bear with us. But
science
anyway.
is hard.
Yeah. So hey, we could have just rolled with it and said this is our second episode in 3 days. You know?
Yeah, we could have. We should have, but we didn't think about that till right now. That's all right, man. Yes, 96 is up. We reviewed 13 going on 30. So if you're checking in now, going like, "Oh, I remember you saying you were going to do those rom-coms." Well, we did it. It was fantastic. It was a great lead-in to She-Hulk. Also a weirdly opposite lead-in into House of the Dragon. Don't worry, I'm going to give a very short review here coming up shortly.
Oh, good, because I'm not following that, so I'm going to rely on you for that portion.
That's perfect. That means it'll be short segments because I don't have a lot to say.
Okay.
But it's been a time. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for joining us live here on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, wherever you are watching. And of course, if you're listening, thank you for joining wherever you get your podcasts. Big week coming up here, both on the show and in life. JRB, how are you? Are you free to roam about the cabin finally?
Yes. Yeah, no, I have been this whole time, really. To keep things short and sweet, I had a COVID scare last week that turned out to be nothing, but work still wanted to play it safe and kept me home. So I have just been trying to be as productive as I can without going to work. They were still really cool about it. They still paid me, so not totally complaining. But
Hey.
I've been kind of getting a little stir crazy, but it has given me the time to catch up on all my favorite stuff. And it's also given me the time to watch She-Hulk 3 times now. And I don't think I was telling you earlier off air that I don't think I've watched a single episode of like one of the Disney Plus shows from Marvel. Like when it comes out, I don't think I've watched it more than twice since probably What If, maybe even Loki. I don't even know if I did it with What If, but this, man, I really like She-Hulk, so I can't wait to get into that with you.
Yeah, knowing you as well as I do, I'd be surprised if you watched What If twice on the premiere. I know how much you hate Captain America. You know, you just bitched about Steve the whole time during the blip. God,
no, he's
classic.
the worst. Oh, I can't stand him.
Can't stand him. Hell yeah, man, that's good. You're catching up on all the stuff. You're watching all the things.
I'm watching all the things, man.
You're out there writing, 5-star articles on your damn iPhone because you don't use your laptop. Apparently, we found out today. The world needs to know this.
Yeah, shout out
writing.
Matt Rimke of the Direct exposing me for not using my laptop to write articles. I had a snafu last summer where my computer became very unreliable and I had to rely on my phone instead. And since then, I kind of just got in the habit of writing and editing articles on my iPhone. And the reason it got brought up is because our website designer, Jack McBrien at the Direct, said he's going to be putting some updates out and asked if there's anything that he should be aware of when he does the mobile version of the update, thinking no one really used it. And I mean, I was really the only one that even said, like, yeah, I use it regularly. Like, apparently I'm this huge outlier. But yeah, so if you're going to write articles, do it on a computer and not on an iPhone, I guess. Or guys like Thomas will make fun of you.
I'm not making fun of you. That's impressive. If you read the notes when I make notes in my phone, it's very obvious it was made on my phone.
I'm always on the go, man. I gotta fit it in wherever I can. But speaking of our professional life, there is a very interesting discussion I wanted to lead off with this week. Before
we do that,
what do you got? What do you got?
I'm thinking we do House of the Dragon quick news and reviews so it doesn't get forgotten.
Okay. Yeah.
Because
let's hear it.
It's 5 minutes and it's just me talking, Max.
Okay. No, let's hear it. Because I am really interested. This has been coming up and I've heard all the talk around it. And I saw the amount of people that tuned in for it. So I know this is a huge event. I never got into Game of Thrones. So I'm so far outside of everything that's going on with that fandom right now. I still don't really have any interest in joining in just because I feel like it's kind of past for me. But I am super interested to see how this prequel / kind of continuation is actually going to hold up, because I know for any property, when something goes for 5, 6, 7, however many seasons it went for, and then they call it a day and they find a way to wrap it up, especially when the ending is not rock solid, having a continuation is always such a risk. So regardless of my personal investment in like the content, I am really interested to see how this goes. So I'll give you the floor. Tell me whatever you want to tell me and everyone else about House of the Dragons.
I'm going to try and keep it spoiler free because it's only been out less than 24 hours. And I know a lot of people aren't watching it until tomorrow, the day after, and there's no telling when this audio will be up.
Real quick, the Legend of Traveling TARDIS pointed out that this has got Matt Smith from Doctor Who. Enough said, smiley face. I only know Matt Smith from Morbius, so I can't. He wasn't terrible, but I really hope he doesn't have a shirtless dancing scene in this. But
I can neither confirm nor deny a shirtless Doctor Who dance party inside of a brothel. I can't confirm it. I can't deny it.
Okay.
There's no telling.
Regardless,
but it starts out with a prologue. Basically, it was really well done, kind of dropping you right back into the universe. Then it skips forward, and it's like, oh, by the way, this narrator's been this main character that you're about to meet. There is a scene halfway through that literally gutted me. I didn't know how to feel. I was blocking my TV at certain points because it was happening. And I'm just like, that's too much for me this close to bedtime. You know, I got a queasy stomach at bed. When I watched The Boys the first time, same issue. Got too queasy. It's like, no, I'm going to watch that in the morning. I'm done. But this episode is fantastic outside of that one huge gutting moment of like, fucking kill me. It's absolutely fantastic. Beautiful. The production value inside the show is amazing. It's exactly what you would expect from Game of Thrones, but JRB, you don't know what to expect. So just consider it to be glorious. It looks like a movie. It feels like a movie. Sometimes it doesn't even feel like a movie. It feels like an entire world that's real. Like that's how well done it is.
Was it all like practical sets, or did they use like the volume technology? Like, did they
as
actually? As
far as I know,
location?
practical. Yeah, they usually. It feels like it's on location. Let me tell you.
Okay, that's all that matters, is because a lot of this newer stuff that's coming out lately has a very heavy CG influence, where even in the backdrop and in the setting, it can be a little distracting sometimes. So
you're distracting.
Whoa.
No, I'm just kidding. Look at your distracting background you're wearing. I'm messing with you, man.
Oh man, or am I distracting?
Yeah, look at her. She's so cute. Like how are we supposed to do a podcast when that cute dog is just dogging around over there?
I don't know.
All right, back to the plot so we don't go too off topic this early in the show. Yeah, the episode is fantastic. The performances are great. Matt Smith scares the hell out of me. In a good, like, yeah, I mean, I don't like his character. I'm expecting.
Are you supposed to like him?
No, I don't think you're supposed to like him. I'm sure
so he plays it well. Okay.
Yeah, he plays it great. Like he genuinely frightens me about what he's gonna do. And the reasonings that they went into in the after part of like why they wanted to do the intro the way they did, why they went down the middle section, so they wanted to have Game of Thrones action, so they had a fight scene, but it's also not exactly the same as what you'd get in Game of Thrones because it's a tournament. It's jousting. It is battle at arms. It is, in some places, once and for all to the death. And it is, first off, for my Rin Fair heart right here, man, just loved it. I was like, yeah, jousting, lances. Oh, look, he's going. Like, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. Didn't need heads being smashed in, but during that, it's intercut with like one of the most graphic and unsettling things I've ever seen on television or a movie before, and it was hard to watch. And the reasoning behind that is how they explain that, you know, men have a certain battlefield and women have another battlefield. It's how they lay it out in the show, and you're looking at me like you need an explanation. So heavy spoiler alert.
I'm just, you don't have to spoil anything. I'm just curious, how much does shock factor or the shock value of this show play into its success compared to the original series? Like, do you feel like it's been heightened at all, or does it kind of match that tone that the original series had?
It absolutely matches.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So you don't think they're leaning too hard into it?
I was hoping they would do less, but they did the exact amount to more, and I'm just like, fuck. I'm in for heartbreak every week, basically. I feel like.
Okay,
I'm gonna get attached to one random character in the background, and they're gonna be sliced in half, man. It happens every week. God, I was like, oh, I like this jouster, and then he's dead within like 4 minutes. Honestly, it's more like 4 seconds, but like still. I
do like that element of it. It's similar to The Boys and how they'll introduce a character you like Supersonic, and then they'll kill him 2 episodes later when you expected there to be all these big plans for him.
Yeah,
so
basically. It is like that. It is exactly like that. In fact, I think The Boys took that a little bit in how they just lean into it so hard from Game of Thrones because it's very Games of Thronesian. It's not a real word.
So Game of Thrones walks so The Boys could run, huh?
No, Game of Thrones Game of Thrones galloped so The Boys could fly.
Oh, I like that. Okay. All right.
So the end of the episode happens, and if you've watched the trailer, you could predict the end of the episode because I was like, oh, okay, this has to happen, this has to happen. Oh, look at that. That all happened. All right. I shouldn't have watched the trailer. Otherwise, I'd have been a little bit more into the moment and not predicting. But if I had to give it a rating, I give it, like 9 dragons out of 9 dragons because that's all they have in this show. So
there's 9 different dragons in this show.
not in the first episode, but there will be. So I'm giving them all the
Whoa.
rankings, right? I'm giving them all dragons right off the top. It was
House
so
of the
good.
Dragons, plural.
And not only that, it was watched by 10 million households on HBO, if I believe is what it
Whoa.
is.
Over
Not
how many
HBO.
days?
Dude, it came out less than 24 hours ago.
It's already got 10 million views in a day?
Yes. So again, on HBO Max, the HBO, excuse me, not the Max, HBO, like the subscriber premium channel that you can get on cable, because some people in the world still have cable, not like you and I, who've got digital.
Yep.
On that, they had 10 million viewers of last night's premiere, which is like the biggest in HBO ever. But in streaming alone, Samba TV reported they had 2.8 million, I believe was the number, households or accounts watching Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon last night. So that's how many.
2.8 million last night and now 10 total? 10 million total?
No. Streaming versus television.
Oh, so 2.8 million streamed it last
streaming.
night? Okay,
yeah.
gotcha. Wow.
Through Samba TV, which is like a very specific niche thing that like will track what they're watching digitally.
Gotcha.
It's like so that's more than any other streaming in a single day. In fact, it took Gray Man to reach 3.5 million. It took 4 days for it to reach 3.5 million.
I believe that
it took Kenobi 6 days
average.
for the premiere to meet, that amount of millions households viewed. So
really,
it's taking down in terms of 1 day. Yeah, it's handling business.
That's awesome.
as the king should, or queen.
So there's still a lot of people around that really want more of this franchise.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to be dead honest. I was like, yeah, House of the Dragon. Sure, House of the Dragon. I woke up yesterday. I was like, oh, House of the Dragon comes on today. Why am I weirdly excited for this? Like, I don't know. And then I was watching and I'm like, oh, that's right. I love this shit. I totally forgot.
Yeah, see, the show didn't end that long ago, right? It was like 2018, 2019.
One could argue that it ended a year or two prior to that, because some people don't believe the final season actually happened. I'm not one of those people.
Or they don't want to acknowledge.
Bit of both. Why not? Yeah, I'm not one of those people. I was into. I mean, it's not the greatest, but I also wasn't watching since day one. I came in about halfway through the series, so I binged the first half, was live for the second half, and it definitely creates a different atmosphere while watching like that.
Man, it's having watched catching up with a show like that.
Yep. 73 hours, I believe, is the give or take timeline of what you watch, unless you skip a lot of the back end of episodes where they have the, after the show BTS fun stuff.
Right.
Wow. But that's House of the Dragon. It handled business on television at your home, and it handled business on the streaming platforms, which kind of brings us to the SAG-AFTRA agreement with the American Motion Picture, and I had it. I was so close. AMPTP. So it was announced. I want to say
so many letters.
It's a lot of letters. There's a lot of acronyms going on here. But
there's like a dozen letters there. There's 13 letters in total in that abbreviation.
That's fantastic. I'm so happy you counted, because I was not going to. But we have a couple days back, maybe a week or so, it was announced that they'd come to an agreement, and the details would be coming out after it was approved by the board members. What they said at the time to Deadline, the union of SAG-AFTRA, stated, and I quote, "Exclusivity contracts are outdated and harmful to creative artists and their families. Since 2009, series seasons have been cut from 24 episodes down to an average of 12. The amount of downtime between seasons has increased from 5 months to 14 months. That's a long time to be out of work, and it has severe financial impacts on actors and their families. Yesterday, it gets approved and goes through. So what they're talking about is the exclusivity money. We heard recently about Pedro Pascal. I say we, and recently, it was a year plus ago, when Pedro Pascal was signed on to be in The Last of Us. They got exclusive rights to him. They got first dibs, basically.
Right.
And, you know, it is probably because they are technically a television studio, and it goes on to basically HBO. It'll go on to HBO, and yes, HBO Max or whatever streaming they're doing at the same time, but it still goes there. So it's going out at the same exact time. And I think that has a different, had more pull back then, especially. So now, under the current television agreement, under the current television agreement, this new one is going to go into place January 1st, 23. Series regulars making at least $15,000 per episode or per week on half-hour programs, or $20,000 per episode or per week for 1 hour or longer programs may bargain freely on exclusivity. That basically means the minimum terms of the bargaining agreement will prevent a series regular from granting exclusivity.
So in a poor boy's terms,
ask that. Yes,
the current agreement is that if you're making more than $15K on a half-hour episode or $20K on a full-hour episode per week, then you basically have free reign on doing either being exclusive or doing your own thing, right? Is if you're making that much, that if you hit that threshold, then the choice is yours. Because it says bargain freely. What does it mean by that?
Basically, you can
bargain your exclusivity.
Hold on. Bargain freely is a legal term here.
Right.
This is I was reading some of the direct, what they broke down in the agreement, which is all legalese. And so you got questions that I'm not a lawyer. I'm not Jennifer Walters here. All right,
but
I'm
the current agreement
it to
is
the
that
best of mine. Yes.
So what about all the actors that are under that threshold that don't meet that requirement? What category do they fall into? And what's their current situation look like?
Well, if they're a series regular, that's a great question. I don't know the answer to that. They are probably free to do, whatever, essentially. They don't have to worry about that.
So they can kind of come and go as they please, as long as they're showing up and doing the work that they have cut out for them. Yeah.
So once they're past this threshold, they're able to bargain freely, which means they can now go to HBO Max and say, hey, this is an exclusivity thing. Here's my price to, keep me exclusive, basically. Whereas anyone who's a series regular and getting under that, it sounds like they do not.
Oh, I get you. So if they're at this minimum threshold, then they can bargain to say, make me exclusive, or I'll go do that. Okay.
You threw me off with your question, so I could be stating that wrong, and I've jumped a gun here. But
all right, sorry. Let's
jump to the now, because this is where
let's jump to the change, because this will help us understand what this means going forward.
Yes. So. So currently, as long as they're reaching that point, basically, it prevents a series regular from granting exclusivity on series. Yeah. Basically, and they can't work on another series where they're also a regular, is how the layman's terms would be broken down. Now, such series regular may agree to greater exclusivity and have lesser ability to do other work. Under this agreement, those figures would increase to $65,000 for a half-hour program and $70,000 for an hour or longer, which means, this is where the question threw me off, that many more series regulars will benefit from the exclusivity limitations in the tentative agreement. So now they're getting paid more, is what it sounds like, to be exclusive.
So what it sounds like to me is that, for what it sounds like, is what this is trying to change is that threshold was too low, and that
they want people to get paid more.
It was capturing too wide of a pool of actors, and they wanted to raise that threshold so that everyone underneath it, That's a $40,000 to $45,000 increase. That's a huge jump. That's going to affect the majority of the spectrum. That's a crazy change.
Yes. Yes, it is. So let's keep going because there's a little bit more stacked up in here. I don't see something specific that I very much remember putting in my notes, but we're here now. We're gonna do it live. 3-month minimum. So the conflict-free window must not be less than 3 consecutive months. So that means, after production, the first position series producer can use reasonable good faith efforts to provide a conflict-free window of more than 3 months and to extend conflict-free windows beyond 3 months whenever possible. Best efforts availability pretty much means the good faith efforts and best efforts. Series regular will use their best efforts to make themselves available on their first position series, such as recalls for added or added scenes, reshoots, ADR, looping, promotional and publicity services. And then you don't need
series is fancy term for priority, for top priority for the first thing she signed on to, or he signed on to.
That / the one who pays them the most to be their number one.
Got it.
Is how it sounds like. So the short hiatus exception. So a conflict-free window is not needed if the hiatus between the completion of principal photography for one season and the commencement of principal photography for the following season is less than 4 months. So essentially, there's no conflict-free window if you're filming season 1 and then in 4 months you start season 2.
There's still ways that this can be taken advantage of, it seems like, because it claims that
taking advantage in which way?
By the studios, because that thing that I literally just asked about, the first position series, if you're claiming if something's stipulating a certain condition for a first position series, that kind of dictates that in your contract for that series in question, it will have to be designated as your first position series as an actor or actress throughout the duration that you're a part of it.
Yeah.
So in a way, first position, it's not exclusive, but that translates to top priority.
Yes.
Top priority means it takes precedence over anything else you have on your agenda. Doesn't that still somewhat translate to not exclusive, because it does say to the best of their ability, but you still have to essentially create a list of priorities through your career of what you're working on. And you now have to rank it and say, this is what I'm working on. Then this kind of comes on the side. And this one, I have some free time. So
exactly what we do.
Interesting.
Like when it comes to scheduling, BTS, when it comes to scheduling, you have, I've got this project. I've got this project. I've got this project. It is always, gears in motion. Sometimes they come together and they clash. Sometimes everything falls in perfect place and you can bounce around from whatever to whatever. There's also a little bit more, but it seems like you're still wanting a little bit more understanding. Okay. So let me just give like an example.
Okay.
As I've understood it prior, you could only be on one series and you had a very either long, do not compete clause is what is how I've understood this. I could be very wrong.
Do not compete. Is that like exclusivity?
So it's a term. Hold on. Yeah, it's a term from WWE where if you get released, you have 90 days that you can't work in any other wrestling promotion.
Oh wow. Okay.
So I've kind of used the transitive property of math while understanding as much as I do, not being a lawyer, that they basically from the end of filming to a specific time they can't really work on another series because. Back in the day, it used to be 5 months between productions. Now it's about 14, as they say, on average, because especially due to COVID and the protocols that go in and the delays that happen regularly. So Pedro Pascal, if he were to go do HBO Max, right, and he does The Last of Us, well, 3 months, give or take, he's got that conflict-free window where it sounds to me like it can be taken either way, that he's able to do whatever, or he's only got 3 months. Like he's got 3 months he can't do anything.
Yeah,
Or 3
that's an
months that he
interesting
can
part
do
of it, because
or
if they
or
give you
3 months he can do anything. There's again, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm reading it from
yeah,
both sides of the aisle.
I
here.
like that this is being seen in a positive light and that it's helping the industry, but at the same time, there
You're
are
worried.
moments like that where you say, well, if they're given 90 days, is it only 90 days and then they're required to return to that first position series, that top priority project?
Ooh, see, that's the thing. If they're coming back, and that's for like production, production starting, right?
Yeah.
So if production is from the end of one season to the beginning of the next season is less than 4 months, they don't do the conflict-free window, you see.
Got it.
Anyways, yeah, while you were talking, I was trying to pull up the actual abbreviated version of all this, because it's not here in my notes, which I'm very upset about. I definitely put it in here. But before we get to that, we might be able to circle back to it. I mean, an unprecedented expansion has been increased where series regulars, including appearances for series regulars, including the ability to be a series regular on a second series and to do an unlimited number of guest star appearances, including an unlimited number of continuing roles that do not exceed 6 episodes. Think of Giancarlo Esposito in this case. And how he's in a bunch of different series, but he's not the lead. He is a regular, right? But he doesn't always get billed as the regular. And in those ones where he's a guest star,
he's credited,
but a
after the
continuing
episode,
role. Yeah, exactly. But it doesn't, he's not in The Mandalorian for a total of 6 episodes over 2 seasons.
Right.
So that is just a recurring role that would be able to be done, without contract issue. And anyways, I had a thought and I had another thought and then it went down a rabbit hole, but we're back. A strict limitation on the permissible reasons for which a series producer may stop a series regular from accepting an appearance on another program, along with a requirement of good faith consideration of all permitted appearances and an obligation to keep records that are available for the union, because that's the union stuff that they need.
That's a union requirement no matter what you're doing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's exactly it, young man. You're so smart. Yeah, here we go. My laptop is struggling after that power surge, bro. It's not.
Yeah,
happy.
I don't know. We didn't even say anything about that. We started a little late tonight. You'll notice that it's 7:38, but we're only about 30 minutes in. Thomas had a power surge right as we were going live, and right as he was about to click that go live button and start broadcasting, I totally lost him. It was a little bit of confusion there, but yeah, we thought it was your fan for a minute, and then turns out it might have been the laptop making that noise.
I don't know, man. I don't know. And then boom, I got no power. And
then no power.
Yikes.
Yeah. Okay. So then
yes. What were you gonna ask?
I want to know, like, how do you feel reading this? Like, is this encouraging to you, or does this seem like more like hoops to jump through? Like, from an actor standpoint, do you see this and do you see, oh, my life just got more complicated, or do you see, oh, this actually makes things a lot easier for my career?
The way I've read it, it would be easier because now you have more freedom, and if you want to grant less freedom, that you get paid even more for it. Is how I've interpreted the data that I've input. Also, I do not have
Go ahead.
I do not have the previous agreement broken down. Like, I have not been able to find it.
Sure.
Do a quick Google search because apparently I still suck at searching in Google. I guess I've reached adulthood. Yay. But I've found that just based on the money change here, it sounds like now you get paid more for being exclusive. And it's boom, bare minimum is this.
Got it.
So how I was reading it earlier in the legalese is confusing because it's legalese. But it sounds like to be exclusive, it used to be like, $15,000 per week for a half hour, $20,000 per week or per episode, for a 1 hour. And now it's 65 and 70.
Yeah.
respectively. So it's
Huge jump.
up in pay to be, you know, have that.
Oh wow,
I'm
I was still
understanding it,
under. That's a 50
exclusivity.
grand increase. That's half $100K. Like
Yes.
that's such a wild increase. I mean,
It
was
is.
this
Yeah.
was
But-
this expected, or was this? It seems so out of left field. I mean, has this been a growing issue?
Yeah, it's been working on it for a while. Let's see. There was a recent agreement by Netflix and SAG-AFTRA where Netflix agreed to join the multi-employer bargaining unit represented by the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers. So it's important because Netflix is like the big streamer, right?
Mhm.
And sometimes they have, like, you know, the Stranger Things kids. Are they still kids? The Stranger Things actors. You know, they had other stuff that they were doing in between, but they had always had to go back. Well, now, how this would be done, let me rephrase this. If Stranger Things started today, they would be getting paid more. Period.
Okay,
Because they are series regulars, etc.
that makes sense. Okay,
Yeah. So they'd be getting paid more off the jump because that's their
got it.
show.
So going
That's their
forward,
bread and
if you
butter.
want to establish like a solid IP or solid franchise where you know I want this actor for several years, you're
Mhm.
going to have to dig a little deeper in your pockets now to make sure that you have that will established. Because you're going to have to pay those people more to make sure that you keep them around, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's
Or is it just if you want them exclusive to your network, to your contracts? Because they
See,
can still do
you're
their
asking
own thing
legal
now.
questions that I don't have
Yeah.
answers.
Okay. So that gets messy. Okay. So I
JRB,
like,
why are you a journalist and not a lawyer? You're asking good questions. Don't lawyer me, kid.
I like that. I like that this opens up. This opens the door for actors to do other things, and I like that.
Yes.
It also opens a very interesting discussion on like the matter of pay when it comes to exclusive rights. So I am so far outside of that industry that I don't know, you know, what they've been hurting for and how this helps.
Mm-hmm.
But I was so interested to get your insight on it because you actually understand this, you know, this way of life. You know, this is very parallel to the lifestyle that you chose. And I just want to know if it's good or not, you know, because it when you see people messing with your money, you want to make sure like, oh, you know, let's make sure it's all on the up and narrow because especially with Hollywood, when you see reworkings like this in especially on like a contractual level, it can go either way. So, but it seems like this is actually going to help a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
It's cool.
Yeah, that's how I've read it. It's the vibe I get every time I read the agreement is this is going to help people. It's going to help. I mean, in theory, it should also help, you know, production houses and in studios at the same time, because now you understand, like everyone's finally joining the 21st century in production, which is we have a lot going on all the time. Everybody wants to work. Everyone should get paid. We should have less strict limitations because free economy or free economy. No, whatever. Capitalistic. It's capitalism. Let's talk She-Hulk because now we're talking all this lawyer stuff, and I'm just
it
this
did
whole
get very
time, I'm like,
lawyery, very
it's like,
lawyerly.
where's Jennifer Walters when you need her, man?
Yeah, she would actually be great to break this down for us. Dude, Tatiana Maslany, I love her already, dude.
Same. You've watched it 3 times.
I think, yeah, I just finished my 3rd time right before we went live here. I wanted to have it as fresh as possible, but excuse me, like I said, I don't think I've watched any episode on Disney Plus more than twice since like last summer. So it's been a while, but this show did it for me, man. It's really, really enjoyable. It's not, now granted, this episode is probably not going to be an accurate representation of what the rest of the season will be like, but
can't wait to fight you on that.
I think we're going to get into that in a minute, but I really, really enjoyed how natural everything felt. You know, Tatiana Maslany, jumped right into this role and she owns it immediately. Her chemistry with Bruce is awesome. And this show, this episode specifically seems so very well pieced together that I'm really hoping that the rest of the series follows suit. How did it hit you? You've seen it, I think, twice as many times as I've watched it. So what about you? Are you loving it just as much as me or even more?
It sounds like even more, considering how many times I've watched it in, what is this now, 4 days?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know. That's what I said. I watched it 3 times day one. I just couldn't get enough of it, man. It's so fun, so charming, heartwarming, etc. I love it. The second, it opens up and she's giving her little speech, and then it just cuts and she's going through, and it's like, my little baby genius is gonna be a district attorney. She's like, yeah, maybe someday. And I'm like, oh, my heart, bro. Then she goes right through, cuts in, mentions the Hulk thing, comes back, and has the great line of, yeah, it's true, I'm a Hulk. And I'm guessing you're not going to be able to focus on this fun lawyer show until you know all about that. So let me get you up to speed. And I popped, man. I was like, oh, okay, it's that kind of show. We're just going to like undercut
she breaks
everybody.
the fourth wall within the first couple of minutes. And it turns out that this episode was supposed to be released a lot later in the series. It was supposed to be like episode 8 or something. And they were going to wait until the second to last episode to tell us about She-Hulk's origin and show us that montage of training and learning with Bruce. I can't imagine what the original first episode was supposed to be. But it is a little weird because I'm glad they did this because I really enjoyed the first episode. But it also makes me wonder, like, what were your original intentions? Because with Moon Knight and Ms. Marvel, the other 2 Marvel shows we got this year, they didn't do that. They made us wait pretty much almost the whole season for both to find out what they were truly about, see where their powers came from, get a better understanding of where they're coming from as a hero. It's weird that they got it out of the way on the first episode with this one. It makes me feel that like it's really going to lean into the sitcom side of things, and they're getting all the fun like MCU technical stuff out of the way early.
I think I'm understanding how they had it. It wasn't just in the scripting phase. This was episode 8, and then they changed it and rescripted. And it was more of they shot it all and then realized, oh, we got to do this because it lands better.
Right.
It's more of, we don't need the origin to be later on. We don't care about that. We need that out of the way so that everyone is just here on the ground running. Because when you think about the biggest complaint for a lot of people in these MCU shows is, like WandaVision, it led into the mystery, right? In Moon Knight, it does lead into the mystery. In Ms. Marvel, it does lead into the mystery, but you didn't also need all of that.
Right.
So it starts doing that thing where it's like, okay, you don't exactly need like, what's her origin to be lingering over this? Because it probably would pull people out of the show. It'd be like, wait, so she's been She-Hulk for how long and what and why and okay. And my guess is this intro was, my assumption is she gives a much shorter version of that speech. Instead of being montage and flashback, she just gives a quick rundown. Like, a few months ago, I was on a road trip with my cousin Bruce. We saw a spaceship. We crashed. His blood got into my blood. I healed him. He's welcome. And then he tried to teach me how to be a Hulk, but unlike him, I could actually, blah, blah, blah. So now, Nikki knows, my mom knows. Bruce
Which they've
wrong,
done plenty of
right.
times in recent years, too, where they just explain away an origin with a sentence.
Exactly. They tell you instead of show you. And I think that might have been the issue. Because we all prefer to see it.
Right.
When
especially
it's
with
important.
The character of She-Hulk, where there's a physical transformation.
Yes,
and there's a catalyst that has to be there in order for that to happen. Like there has to be a very hard reason why that happened, because for Bruce Banner, it was as monumental as gamma radiation poisoning, where it completely altered his life and he was set on a completely different course, which this episode also gave us a little more insight into, which was very unexpected and very awesome. I liked how much time we got to spend with Hulk figuring out how he actually feels about the ride he's been on for the past, decade and a half.
He hates it.
He really hates it. He's like, Jen, I can prevent you from going on this journey, not realizing that she's not on the same path as him. But
she's
like, you
on
can
a
see-
whole nother world, man.
But yeah, you can see how adamantly he's like, please let me help you. Because you can see, like, it's just not the journey he's been on. He doesn't want anyone else to go through, certainly not someone he cares about. So Hulk's inclusion early on was very interesting. I think the emotional weight really did feel like it was a later episode, because the way Bruce spoke about his time as the Hulk, what his studying, even his time with Avengers like Steve and Tony, he did a very good job of portraying like there was like an underlying sadness there to everything he was talking about. And it did have a similar emotional levity as like the later episodes of like WandaVision or Moon Knight. So we got surprisingly low for a premiere episode, which I really enjoyed.
See, I didn't think it was that low. Like all of his emotional things were very subtle, and I don't see a lot of people picking out those subtle nods.
I think it might have been overshadowed a little bit by the comedy, but if you just pick out Hulk's,
everything
character,
he does is sad.
It's pretty depressing, really.
But
he's like, I'll just get buzzed. I'll get drunk. I'll be drunk Hulk.
All buzz, no barf. So
still have a Hulk-size hangover though.
Well, I guess
not worth it.
Not gonna dive into that honestly, because you never know. It might just be in the human form. Like, I don't know. It's hard to tell. But yeah, his entire history in the MCU has been torture and trauma. And when you go back and watch all of these movies until Endgame, he hates himself. He's literally slapping himself in the face trying to get the Hulk to come out in Infinity War. He's like, come on, man. Come on, man.
Yeah.
No. What do you mean? No. And now he's got this. And what I love the most is it showed us the lab that he changed himself in the blip. And it showed us how he got there, right? And without exactly showing us how he got there. It showed us, but it didn't show us. It gave us background. He's got these little knickknacks, right? He's in Mexico. We've all wanted to know what the fuck's going on with Bruce Banner since Shang-Chi post-credit scene. They explained that right away, man.
They did it in 2 sentences.
Right away. And here's the thing that gets me. If this episode were so late, that means either A, there's less Hulk and Bruce Banner going forward, or B, they were just going to be like, oh yeah, he's Smart Hulk again. Like it almost made no sense on how this would have been laid out. So I'm thinking maybe Hulk doesn't show up until the end of the series. But even
I don't
then,
think we're getting a lot more Hulk. I don't know if we'll see him again at all until like a post-credit scene.
Yeah, we'll definitely see. I got a feeling he's gonna call her when everything goes down. Like we'll I don't know, man.
It would be weird if she doesn't reach out to him once this does all become public, because they ended the first episode by her basically punching Titania right in the chest and sending her into a wall. Yeah, the public's gonna have some questions about that. And by the way,
she said her real name when she did it. Who are you? Jennifer Walters, attorney at law.
No attempt to mask her identity. She's very out in the open with it. And I have to imagine she'll call Bruce because she's going to have a question on how to navigate from here. It's not going to be a road that she's familiar with. And who else would she reach out to,
Exactly. So I think we'll have
Bruce at least once more before the finale, I feel like.
I mean, all the rumors around this show, he could be in this like for half the back half of the entire series.
I don't think I would mind that, because the dynamic between them really helps you pick out the uniqueness of She-Hulk and how she differs from Bruce Banner. Because right off the bat, they're like, look, we'll compare their brute strength. Yeah, obviously Bruce Banner is stronger right now. She doesn't even know how strong she is. But what she can do is she can think on her feet more, and she already is finding ways to kind of outsmart him and find ways to overpower him without using physical strength. So bringing him back into the fold to show those differences a little bit more and kind of bring that contrast into a little bit more light, I think might be the whole purpose of this series, really, because when you're introducing a She-Hulk, it's like Kid Flash, you know, or like Iron Lad, you know, it seems derivative of the original property. So you want to find ways that make it unique and make it original. I mean, you have Kate Bishop literally taking over the Hawkeye mantle. She's not even changing the name. So, and you saw how they established the differences between her and Jeremy Renner's Hawkeye. Mm-hmm. So I think this series could do the same thing where she is kind of taking that Hulk mantle where I'm a Hulk now, you know? And I think this will be the distinguishing series where we get to see how she's different from the Hulk we already know.
Yeah.
It's going to be really cool, but we're going to need Bruce Banner to do that.
Maybe we will, maybe we won't. I mean, they already kind of showed it off here, right? Now she gets to experience it herself, which will be kind of fun. Let's kind of break down a little bit. Like She-Hulk healed Bruce, her blood healed Bruce's arm. Mm-hmm. Which is fantastic. She has full consciousness.
Pretty
only
wild.
Her third time changing.
Right. Yeah. She only did it a total of 3 or 4 times in the whole show, right? Because it was the car crash, the bar scene, the island twice, island 3 times.
The island has
probably did it way more times than what we saw.
There's a lot in the island, but it seems like the third time she goes into She-Hulk mode, she hulks out. And we'll say
they're using some pretty creative cuts and camera angles to show that transformation.
Yeah,
I want to see just start to finish one shot her transforming because she's like 4 feet tall, and to see her transform into She-Hulk would be so cool because she's literally like doubling in size, and it's a lot like Mark Ruffalo, where it's kind of a smaller, feeble man who turns into this rage monster. I want to see the before and after, like in one shot.
That would be fantastic. And I think we'll get there someday.
So yeah, she has full consciousness though. That was the really interesting part, is that she does not have, and Bruce said this, is you don't have an alter ego. You don't have another guy to wrestle with for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Oh, we could break that down a lot, but here's what I think it is.
I think there's a reason.
Yeah, I think they explain it. I think they explain it in the basically the very next, well, not the very next scene, but like the very next full scene we get.
That same conversation, yeah.
And it's the conversation where, I'm already pretty good at controlling my anger. I do it all the time. I'm catcalled in the street, when incompetent men explain my own area of expertise to me. I do it pretty much every day, because if I don't, I will get called emotional or difficult, or might just literally get murdered. So I'm an expert at controlling my anger because I do it infinitely more than you. She hulks out. He's like, and she's like, no, I'm doing this, and de-hulks.
Right. She's doing it on command in the moment to show him like, dude, I've got this.
And he's literally like, all right, this is a whole new territory here.
Right.
And so I think that's exactly why she doesn't have to wrestle it. She's able to control it, where we don't know what Bruce was doing with his anger before becoming the Hulk. Maybe he was trying to avoid it and ignore it, and she's processing it and going, all right, well, that's
think
fine.
It could be
I'll
that.
use it here.
I think it could be way more similar to something like Moon Knight than what we're expecting, because I don't know if it's as much as him creating a second personality.
Ah, I see.
But the whole Hulk being a separate persona and being fueled by rage and anger seems like it's that Bruce Banner is not processing something properly.
Yes, exactly. And it comes down to her being more emotionally well balanced.
Yeah. It's crazy. And he said being a Hulk is all about balance, and she seems to have it down right now.
So I think that's the exact reason. Shout out to Bruce's tips and techniques. Spandex is your best friend, right? I totally forgot to add this screen you wanted me to pull up, but hey, we're there. Spandex is your best friend. Then they have that good fun, ground pound.
Ground pound. That was pretty cool.
That was a fun one. Gets pushed off the thing. But my favorite is dialectical behavioral therapy, which is meditation and yoga, as I understood by watching. But it's like dialectical behavioral therapy is a, complex. He says something, and her immediate response was, "Oh, I thought it was to get my butt tight up top." I'm like, yep, okay, this is fantastic. I love this sense of humor. Just like, yeah. So leads to great stuff. Then they fight. Who doesn't want a good Hulk fight? How many years have we been waiting for a Hulk on Hulk fight?
It's been so long. The
Here's-
closest we got was Hulkbuster versus Cole Obsidian in Infinity War, and that was just like a slap in the face because Hulk was right there and he wasn't doing anything.
Yeah, well, anyways, I'm just going to skip right past that because Cole Obsidian doesn't matter. He got taken out by a gauntlet. So a gauntlet
Twice.
and a battlefield. And what is that called?
Stomp. A giant man. A boot.
No, I'm talking about the Wakandan.
Oh, a force field.
Force field. Thank you. Thought the word force, and I'm like, this isn't Star Wars.
Force.
I just finished the Star Wars book, so there's that. My bad. The fight. My favorite little thing from it is as Hulk, as Bruce gets madder and madder and madder, you hear the Hulk come out.
Yeah.
And what I
And
find
you can see it in
hilarious,
his eyes too.
yeah. Well, what I find really interesting is that earlier on, right after she hulks out, throws the thing, you don't have another guy to wrestle with 10 years. Cool. And he's like, bruh, that was like $1 million worth of damage.
Yeah.
He goes on to mention that, even getting a little mad can cause, massive amounts of damage. Not even talking about Hulk rage,
Right.
as something that he apparently still has, where if you get to a certain point of anger, your inner beast will take over. That sounds like something that She-Hulk has, because when she gets angry and she yells, it's a different level.
Right.
And let's not act like human beings don't have a point where they just black out with rage and wake
Right.
up.
Exactly.
Like, that's totally normal, even for people who are emotionally well balanced. I say not being emotionally well balanced. No, I'm just kidding.
Right.
Like,
As balanced as
has that
as-
thresh point where they are like, all right, if I go any past, like further, if I get any angrier, I'm not gonna remember what I do because I'm gonna do something horrible and I'm just gonna black out instantly. So
yeah.
whether it's I slapped you over the face and that's like the worst thing I could do, or I threw a car through a window because I have Hulk strength. I don't know. I'm not the Hulk.
It is
But
interesting to see
it's
because we already
interesting-
did see her black out technically.
Yeah, and they linger like underneath. They're just leaving it there subtly to remind you, like, these people can lose control still.
Mm-hmm.
Rumor has it it's leading to a World War Hulk, which is interesting considering the Sicarian spacecraft that shows up in the beginning.
Right. I
And I
am
know you
so
wanted to talk
intrigued
about
by
that.
that. There's already so many rumors flying, and I know they did that on purpose to get a lot of talk around it. I'm stuck in a weird spot because like I want them to follow up on that, but I also feel like this isn't the right place to do it because you're setting the tone for She-Hulk to be something totally different. And I don't see how anything from Sakaar can fit in line with that other than the actual comedic beats from someone like Jeff Goldblum's Grandmaster, like it outside of that, it really doesn't make sense why they would try to further that here other than that Hulk is in the title of the series. But the weirdest part was that Hulk played it off so casually, like he had gotten one before. He's saying, oh yeah, it was a Sakaran ship. It was a A-class messenger ship or something. They probably have a message for me. He's like, I got to see what that's about. He didn't seem that concerned. It seemed like it wasn't the first time he had seen one. And
I mean, he literally says, yeah, when you're a Hulk, strange things just kind of find you.
You're right. He does kind of just have the mindset of, I'll just take every day as they come. I think he literally says that to Jen at one point. We'll take each day as it comes or something. But he knew exactly what ship it was. Last time he saw that ship, he was in no mindset to remember that kind of information.
He was Bruce Banner. He was flying that ship.
For a second, I mean, did he really know the classification of it?
Probably. And if not, I'm sure he's had, I don't know,
to know the classification.
8 years to find out. 5 years, 7 years, however long.
But how would you find out other than going back there? I don't know. That's my point, though. Is like in this gap where he said I spent the blip in Mexico trying to fix myself. I wonder how many times he had those ships visit him because it seems weird that he knows the classification of all the different Sakaran ships.
Yeah. That's a good question.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot more to unpack there. The better question is when are they going to unpack it? Because She-Hulk seems like the wrong place to do it, especially since we kind of just said goodbye to Bruce for at least the next few episodes.
Well, to be fair, we said goodbye to Bruce for a few months.
That's true, because it did say a few months ago, and she hasn't. And when they catch back up, it's been a while.
She hasn't seen him, yeah. So it's very like a, and that's a good reason why I'm like, why did they do what they did? I feel like
I don't think that these other episodes are going to have Hulk around, because
we'll see. I mean, the Daredevil's coming. We know that.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be a very fun thing, you know, like two lawyer heroes teaming up, kicking ass.
That definitely have different approaches to. Well, we don't know what She-Hulk's approach is, but it's probably not similar to.
It's probably more lawful. Yeah, it's probably.
I would think it's a little more in line with helping people the way that she's always wanted to. Yes. Which was one of my favorite lines. Because
I love that line. Yeah.
That is going to have to be compromised. She's going to have to make a decision to say, I'm going to find a way to do things the way I've always wanted to, but it's not going to be this perfect image I have in my head, because that might have been the most glaring plot point from the opening episode, is she has this idea of how her life is supposed to go, and she's going to have to wrestle with the fact that it's not going to be that way.
Character growth. I love it. It's what I'm very excited for. And again, I don't know how they had it lined up originally, but it's fantastic the way they did it. Let's talk about. I feel like we've touched on everything. Have we touched on Bruce's bar? You wanted to talk about
the only thing I want to mention is Bruce's bar, man. I love that Tony and Bruce built a bar together during the blip, and they called
Tony mostly complained about Steve, but
Bruce built it and Tony complained. But it was it's something they bonded over. We get to see another insight into the Bruce and Tony relationship, because I feel like almost all of that happens exclusively off screen. And I love learning these little bits and pieces, but it was so sentimental, and it seeing their names carved into it, and then seeing Jennifer carve her initials into it makes me think like, oh, I hope every Avenger visits Bruce's bar, you know, and that, you know, countertop, that bar top eventually has everyone's initials etched into it. Oh man, that would be such a fun legacy thing for like the young Avengers to come across someday, you know? But yeah, Bruce's bar, such a cool plot point regardless. I really, really enjoyed that he still had this human side that he was nurturing with Tony while he's still trying to figure out all the madness of being a Hulk, you know?
Yeah, I love your idea of like everybody's got to come to Bruce's bar. And
yeah, it's pretty cool, right? Yeah,
I love that idea.
One of the only original Avengers remaining.
We need a one shot of party at Bruce's bar.
Yeah, exactly, right. Where he can reminisce with old friends. You know, like Thor could be there, and they could share a beer over their time and during Thor Ragnarok, but then he could have, you know, the newer friends from Avengers Endgame like Rocket Raccoon link up with him, or even, you know, Valkyrie could obviously join. So they are friends.
Hulk
has connections almost everywhere in the MCU right now, so it's kind of cool the way that they're positioning him in that sense. But yeah, other than that, I think we did cover everything. The only other thing regarding Tony Stark is the Led Zeppelin t-shirt that Jen was wearing. I definitely think that was originally Tony's, because Bruce just manages to find Tony's clothes everywhere.
I love that. Love that.
Right. Doesn't it? Isn't that a nice little headcanon just to think that's Tony's t-shirt?
You know what's crazy is I'm like, my instant thought is there's no way that's Tony's t-shirt, because she hulks out in that t-shirt and goes to 6'7".
Yeah.
So
and she doesn't rip it. You're right.
And she doesn't rip it at all. So Tony is not an extra large shirt or a double XL.
You know what? So. She ripped a lot less clothing than she should have when she grew, because like I said, she's a pretty small woman. And especially in the courtroom, I think she would have had a little more than just a torn sleeve. But
yeah,
I don't know. Maybe it was spandex. Maybe she took maybe she took Bruce's advice. But she said, "I really like this outfit." So who knows?
Well, all her stuff looked a little big on her, you know.
Yeah, but I think everything looks a little big on her, like especially that Led Zeppelin t-shirt.
I mean, that's the point, though. It's gonna be big so that she can grow into it.
Life's a little big on her right now.
Oh, okay. I see you trying to write some poetry over here, JRB.
Okay, so Thomas, I do have one final thought I want to get out for this show.
Yeah.
Before I do, is there anything else that about She-Hulk's first episode that you want to talk about? Anything strike you in a way that you think is significant?
Yeah, I think that Steve Rogers is still alive.
Dude, I have hated this theory so much for as early as Falcon and Winter Soldier. This is the first show that's made me buy into it. They have focused on Steve Rogers heavy in almost every episode, or almost every series in at least one episode since they started this Marvel Disney Plus stuff. I feel like Rogers is all over the place.
You know, it's leading me to think when he left in Endgame, he ended up doing something and found himself in Secret Wars.
Ooh.
And they're going to meet that version of Cap in the future. Like that version of Cap in the future, who's also the past version of the Steve Rogers they're currently talking
So it's going to be the Steve we always knew.
That's kind of the vibe I'm getting. Like with how they're consistently setting it up. I mean, well, look at what we're doing in this episode. We find out a lot about Captain America we didn't know for the last 11 years.
And that I wouldn't believe was true if not stated by the Hulk himself. Like
exactly.
Like that. We find out that Steve Rogers.
Hold on. We get set up early on in the episode that Steve Rogers, Captain America, might be a virgin, according to lawyer Jennifer Walters. And at the very end of the episode, they're talking.
Post-credit scene.
The post-credit scene. Thank you. The Jennifer Walters is just getting hammered. Like, it's so sad. Like, he did so much for the American experience and he never got to experience sex. I mean, look at that ass. It did not deserve to die a virgin. It's like so sad. And Bruce's immediate response is, Steve Rogers is not a virgin. He lost his virginity to a woman in 1943 on the USO tour. Right. And she, you know, she drops the act and goes, I knew it. You're not drunk right now? Captain America, fuck! And it cuts out. And that might be why I keep watching this episode, honestly.
That's a top 5 post-credit scene for sure, all time for Marvel.
I can't think of one that beats that for me.
That is the only one I can think of is Spider-Man Far From Home, where they also cut out when he's saying fuck. But other than that, like I think it might be one of the best post-credit scenes they've ever done. That this whole show seems like it has such a fun tone to it, where it's very lighthearted. It's a show where it's made. So Miss Marvel was made. Yeah. It was kind of a love letter to Marvel fans, right? And kind of put you in the hero's shoes for once, because Miss Marvel literally was like us. She was just a super fan. This show is kind of a love letter to Marvel fans, where they're just giving you everything you want, where it's going to be funny. It's going to be lighthearted. It's going to have those emotional moments, but it's mainly going to be packed with all those fun comic accurate moments. And, well, maybe not comic accurate, but comic inspired moments that we've all been waiting for, and a bunch of fun appearances that they've been promising as well. So, yeah. Final question.
Yes, sir. Hit me.
How many Avengers do you think we'll see by the end of She-Hulk?
7.
Whoa. Okay. Wow. More than the original lineup. Okay. 7.
I mean, think about how many Avengers are. Wong, technically an Avenger. Avengers. Assemble. Yeah, he is.
Okay. Well, then you can call every
Avengers.
You can call every Wakandan warrior an Avenger then. But okay.
I could. I'm not going to. I'm only going to go with the named heroes we know. So I think we'll get Wong.
Maybe I was a little too broad in my. You were
too broad. Okay.
I was a little too broad. So in the Avengers lineup that we recognize, over under, let's say 3.5. How many Avengers do you think we'll see? Do you think it's going to be 7 still? Like obvious. Under? You think it'll be under?
There's only so many established Avengers left.
That's true. That's a good point. The roster itself is pretty slim.
Like, who's alive? Thor?
Oh, wow.
Thor, Hulk, Old Man Cap. Dude, if they get Old Man Cap in this series, that'll be amazing.
That'll be pretty crazy, actually.
Yeah, it would be insane.
Hawkeye.
Well, Spider-Man, I don't think will show up. Let's be honest, Spider-Man won't.
I'm not listing people who show up. I'm just listing active Avengers right now, because there's not a lot of them.
See, you confused me because I thought about Peter Parker and I totally forgot he doesn't exist. But Captain Marvel,
yeah,
Okoye,
Okoye. I love that one. Because
She's not going to get a hold of Rocket. Who am I missing? Oh, Don Cheadle.
Yeah,
War
Rhodey.
Machine. So them folks, 7-ish.
And
and we
all of
got
them.
Hulk in it. So I did say all of them. I was leaning on the Wong side of things.
Everyone
Wong.
The Wong Cinematic Universe. That's right.
I mean, another quick line before we jump out of here. She mentioned, I don't want to go into a top secret government organization and then lose my life.
Yeah.
Thunderbolts, anybody? Ooh. I think they were going to get set up for the Thunderbolts. And I'm starting to lean towards Thunderbolts might not be the Thunderbolts version that I know.
Yeah.
Because I've been doing more research and reading up on Thunderbolts because I'm very excited for that. My God. But there are some aspects where it's heroes and villains, and the heroes are helping reform the villains from the raft. Who is that, sir? Who is in the raft, sir? Abomination. Who's been working with Abomination? Wong. It's happening.
Right.
So She-Hulk might lead the Thunderbolts.
I think She-Hulk is going to play a huge part in how we understand what they're going to do with the Thunderbolts. Very much so. We're definitely going to learn what that is in this series, but I'm going out on a limb. Episode 1, Jennifer Walters is going to lead the Thunderbolts. Why? Wow.
Because she understands the minutia of the Sokovia Accords, and she will be able to keep everyone on track in the sense that if need be, she can beat the crap out of them because she is a Hulk. Wow. I really like that take. She-Hulk leading the Thunderbolts. That'll be a super interesting dynamic to see her lead a group of people that she might even potentially have defended in court at one point. So that'll be really cool. See, that would make it even better. Like her and Emil Blonsky, she defended him in court. And now they're fighting side by side. So now they're fighting side by side, and the better part of it all is they have trust with each other. Wow. Trust builds teams. Like it. I like it. I'm open for it. I wouldn't have ever thought of that, but now that you've mentioned it, I think it would be a cool spin to see it kind of builds on the whole legacy thing that they're leaning into with these new phases, is on top of training new heroes to take over the mantle, you can train your old villains to also take over your spot. So we'll see how that plays out. But are we on the closing thoughts? Let's get to the closing thoughts because there's some other news topics I want to talk about. That's fine. I'll include it into my closing topic. Okay, cool. Then here, I'll let you go first. Go ahead. What out of everything, I know you said okay, so if you gave House of the Dragon 9 out of 9 dragons, how many Hulks do you give this series out of the 2 Hulks that there are? See, that's where you can either give it a 0, a 50, or a 100, brother. I'm gonna give it a 100. I'll stick to your math, but if we're gonna get logical here, if Scar exists, that's another Hulk. If Doc Samson's also been gammaed, that's another Hulk. If we're gonna have Samuel Stern in here, also kind of gamified. Hey, he's somewhere already. Another Hulk. That's what I'm saying. And this is my point. This is my final point. So I'll close it out on this. Samuel Stern is referenced in this movie because if this blood got out, could you imagine if there's even a 1 in a million% chance that it creates another one of us? That's bad. Samuel Stern has already started that. And he's most outside likely, of their bloodline. He is exactly. So he's mutated differently, just like Emil Blonsky, who also came from that bloodline. So all of these characters do exist already. And I think we're getting them all back, man. I mean, we are too. Isn't Ty Burrell? Isn't Ty Burrell, right? That's his name, right? Anyways, from Modern Family plays Phil. It is also Doc Samson in the Incredible Hulk movie. Isn't he rumored to be in this show? I know he's rumored. I don't think there's been anything confirmed on that though. If he's in the show, he's Doc Samson. He is Doc Samson. They're only one sneeze and a fart away from pushing him into gamma radiation and him becoming Doc Samson of gamma power. So I think we're getting it. Like, this is the show to introduce all of the gamma, the gammas. Right. I definitely think you're right. I think if there's any time to expand the Hulk side of the MCU, it's in this show because
you're right. For a long time, we've gone over a decade without following up on where everything else was left after the end of Incredible Hulk. We got to find out where General Ross and Hulk were. Everything else in that movie got put on the back burner and hasn't been touched until now. So they're already bringing Abomination back into the fold. I don't think it's going to stop there. I think you're right, bringing up first of all, the aspect of family, and then also establishing anything outside of their family could also be, cause for concern. I think that this is just a starting point. I don't think that She-Hulk is going to be the only, Hulk that comes out of this, at least not long term.
Yeah. And I think Scar is going to make an appearance. There's a lot going on here. I'm very excited for this show. What are your closing thoughts?
I'm very much in line with you. I loved the show. I'm interested to see what it's going to be now, because like we said, we spent the majority of this episode with Jen and Bruce, but it also positioned that the rest of the season, or at least the majority of the remaining season, will not have Bruce. So I want to see how she's going to work with these other characters. I liked, I'm forgetting her name now, but I don't know if it was her assistant or someone in her. Nikki, thank you, Nikki. Someone she claimed as her best friend, I think, when asked. So I like her and Nikki. I like how Nikki was like, "Do your thing, come on, civic duty, you have to be She-Hulk." I loved that She-Hulk is civic duty to her. That's hilarious. But I'm interested to see where it's going to go, because the pilot is supposed to set the tone, but the tone you set with Hulk is not going to be there. So I'm interested to see how the supporting cast is going to pick up that slack.
See, I think to kind of carry that on, I think Nikki and Jen are going to have a dynamic that switches more than Bruce and Jen. So Bruce was being very like, this is it, this is that, it is this, I'm being very serious. And she's the one cracking jokes. Well, in the end of the episode, she's the one who's like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. She's being very serious. And Nikki's like, come on, do it. Civic duty. Come on.
Right.
Let's go. Let's go. Do the thing. And so we're laughing at Nikki, not at Jen, where earlier on in the episode, we're laughing at Jen, not Bruce, for the most part. And then I think they're going to have a very well balanced, their energy together in that opening scene. It's like, oh, I'm going to kill you, and Jen's not going to prosecute it because it's a conflict of interest, not because I think murder's okay, Dennis. Like that kind of that shtick, I think, is going to continue on going forward.
It'll be fun.
I think
it will be fun. You're right. Good. It's setting a high bar when you have someone like Mark Ruffalo in your pilot episode playing the Hulk. So I think I'm not worried. I'm just interested to see how the rest of the series is going to go when she has to play off of people other than Mark Ruffalo.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm excited nonetheless, but I am interested to see if it's going to be the same or if it's going to be like a huge left turn once we get to, the huge middle bulk of this season.
Oh my God. They're making a left turn right into our next segment. We will come right back after this brief ad break. We'll see you there to talk the news.
Sweet dreams they placed on me inside my mind. Chance my truth, twist the past, my memories are fading fast. Am I still missed? Who do you want me to be? Am I still missed?
Join author Gary Zeiger for an animatic short film based on his Breakaway Stingray novel series. Watch this animatic short based on the novel Stingray, You Can't Hide Forever at stingrayseries.com. In Stingray, You Can't Hide Forever, Captain Epsilon is putting the band back together to rescue his protege's little sister from the evil conglomerate, while keeping his state-of-the-art warship, Stingray, out of their hands. Watch as the adventure unfolds in the groundbreaking animatic short at stingrayseries.com. Then, join the crew of Stingray with the next novel in the series, Stingray Prophecy, where Captain Epsilon and Dr. Zubre are pivotal players in an ancient prophecy. Can they reunite the people of two worlds before they destroy each other? To learn more, visit stingrayseries.com.
Look at that. We're back like we never even went on a break. And we're going to dive right on into everyone's favorite segment. What the news? And what the news indeed. We're going to start off. You know it. You love it. Thor Love and Thunder has never left my heart or my hammer, and I cannot wait. September 8th, it is finally coming to Disney Plus, along with Love and Thunder's assembled episode and an Obi-Wan Kenobi BTS show. Ah!
There's a lot going on. Yeah, we're
There's
about to get a lot more content on Disney Plus.
I don't know what to do on Disney Plus Day. I gotta go to work. I gotta watch She-Hulk. I gotta watch Thor. I gotta watch Assembled. And come on, I don't have that kind of time in a day.
It's a lot. A
Frack.
really interesting part of this is that Thor Love and Thunder came out July 7th, July 8th?
July 8th, yeah.
It's hitting Disney Plus exactly 2 months later.
Yeah.
That is, I mean, I know that's kind of the trend we're seeing now with these Marvel movies, but if I'm not mistaken, Thor Love and Thunder did not have that 45-day exclusive theatrical window like the others did. It's still in some theaters, right?
Yeah, I do believe it is.
Yeah, and so it's interesting to see, and we'll get into this more later, but it's interesting to see that some movies are still running in theaters while they're also available to stream through like a subscription service. So although it wasn't like a hybrid release where it was in theaters and on streaming at the same time, you are still seeing that overlap where, you can either watch it at home or you can watch it on the big screen. Whereas even just a couple years ago, there was still a significant gap in between those two events. So it's weird. I'm excited to watch it again. I'm not going to go in theaters to see it again. I've already seen it a couple times. So, but I will certainly be watching it as soon as it hits Disney Plus, and I'm sure you will too.
Yes. So I'm looking at some of the breakdown, and I don't see. You're right. I don't see Thor having a 45-day exclusive theatrical window. I think it was just for the rest of 2021 films that Disney did. And I believe it was also, give or take, 2 months for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness to make it on there as well. I do know that they were holding off Thor for Disney Plus Day. I'd heard that because they need something to actually pull in people on Disney Plus Day, which you're right. You do. I now care about Disney Plus Day. Because I didn't before, and now you're giving me Kenobi, Thor, and a Thor BTS on top of She-Hulk. That's a win, dude. That's a win in every avenue of reality. But that's not the only news we have from good old Thor Love and Thunder. We get this amazing concept, which I'm guessing this might be backwards or not. I don't know. It's hard to tell. It does say WIP and other backwards, but it is the Grandmaster ship, and we have possibly a droid welder wearing a celestial looking helmet, welding helmet.
The same helmet that we saw in Ragnarok in his lounge area during the gladiator fights.
The same style, yes.
Style. Probably not the same person, but same style.
I'm assuming not the same person. I'm also assuming that most of those Celestials made their eyes look like Arishem specifically. So, but the best part of this is there is a little old corgi, little Korg head, little Korg face sitting there, kind of projecting the timeline that this would have fallen in. And it seems perhaps that the deleted scene took place after Team Thor stole Zeus's thunderbolt from Omnipotent City, where the grass is green and Zeus is shitty.
Yeah, no,
But
this is particularly interesting because like the Grandmaster didn't feel like he was missing from this movie. So like I know that a lot was cut down, and the whole requirement of this movie being 2 hours or less is just freaking insane to me. I can't believe that was an actual requirement at all. But especially since they just put out Avengers Endgame a few years ago, and that was almost 3 hours. So I don't know why the time frame is such a problem for them, especially before even seeing the movie. But it's weird that he didn't even feel like that. Whatever this scene was, it wasn't missing from the story they ended up telling. So like it must have been in a pretty early cut. I know that Jeff Goldblum was spotted during like the time that this movie was being shot, and he was kind of in the same area as that cast. So I'm sure he did shoot a scene or two for this. But it's so weird that like it doesn't feel like this was a scene that was cut. You know, it just feels like an idea.
Yeah. And you know, my favorite thing about Goldblum not being in it is what Goldblum said leading up. He's like, yeah, like my scene didn't make it, but if you look real closely, you'll see my energy. And I'm like, what the frack does that mean? And then
you saw the movie then.
Yeah, and then he's like, you're not invited to the orgy. And I'm like, oh my God, Grandmaster, you son of a bee sting.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, they somehow fit that into Thor 3 and 4.
Hey, you gotta love it. Hey, and not only that, but don't forget Captain America. Speaking of Avengers actors, Robert Downey Jr. is gonna hop back into Sherlock mode.
Yeah,
and filming. I know you're excited. So filming is supposed to start at the end of the year.
I'm so excited. So for a long time, Sherlock Holmes 3 was just a myth. It wasn't anything that was confirmed. They, spoiler alert if you haven't seen the movies, but the second one came out in like 2014, and they ended it with everyone thinking Sherlock was dead except the audience. So like in that world, in that movie universe, everyone thought Sherlock was no more. But the audience was kind of cued in and they were told that Sherlock is still alive. So there was always that possibility of a third one. And now it seems like there is an actual promise, or at least a encouraging update that this movie's happening. It comes from One Take News, which is a newer publication, sort of hit or miss on their takes, but they have said that from multiple sources of theirs that production or shooting on the third Sherlock Holmes film with Robert Downey Jr. is set to shoot by the end of this year. So still not even really specific on a time frame of when they'll actually get going. It could mean, in the next couple months, or it could literally mean December 31st. But nevertheless, they are saying that they have multiple sources claiming that this is moving forward. And that's more of an update than we've had in a long time. And certainly makes it sound like this is actually happening. So it's not much, but it is a step forward. And anything that'll move us towards another Robert Downey Jr. led Sherlock Holmes film, I'm 100% in.
I'm here too. I'm not emotionally tied to the Sherlock. I
own the
You're gonna hate me.
You're
gonna hate me. I fell asleep in the second one.
Oh,
I know. To be fair, it was very late and it was past my bedtime, despite waking up at 5 a.m.
Well, I mean, I would definitely recommend.
I don't hate it.
Rewatch.
It's fun. I enjoy it. I'm here for the third. It's gonna make me watch the first two.
Yeah, I definitely rewatch. Regardless of whether you see the third one that they're reportedly making, but the first two they're both such a fun ride, and Robert Downey Jr. in any role is fun, but he really Jude Law plays Watson in these, and he
big deal, just Captain Marvel and Iron Man.
Right, exactly. So and it's funny because the TV show Sherlock, I believe, was Benedict Cumberbatch and Martin Freeman, who are both also in the MCU as Doctor Strange and Everett Ross, respectively. Yes. Which is pretty cool. But so Sherlock 3 might be happening. Sounds like it might be happening. Speaking of Sherlock, though, that's not the only iteration of Sherlock Holmes that we'll see on screen in the next year or two, because production and shooting on Enola Holmes 2, or Enola on Netflix, as it's better known, is underway, and the first look at the series has finally been revealed. Thomas, did you watch the first Enola Holmes film on Netflix? Did you get a chance to check that out?
No, I did not.
Okay, I will tell you right now, and I'm sure that a lot of people are in the same boat as me initially. I was not very interested in this. I thought it was cute. It looked kind of almost a little gimmicky. So I wasn't going to give it a chance, but my fiance or girlfriend at the time was really interested in it. And of course, I'm going to watch it with her. So we sat down and watched it, and it ended up being one of my favorite movies of the year. I really didn't know. Oh crap, Bobby Brown, Millie Bobby Brown, until this, because I never really bought into Stranger Things. I had seen her in maybe one or two other miscellaneous things. She freaking killed it, and then having Henry Cavill as Sherlock Holmes in this series is even more fun. From Deadline, they're saying that returning to the film series is Henry Cavill as Sherlock Holmes. You're also going to have Louis Partridge as Tewksbury, who was also in the first one. You'll have Susan Wokoma as Edith, and I know I'm going to say this one wrong, Adil Akhtar as Lestrade, and Helena Bonham Carter as Enola's mother, Eudora. But they're also adding a couple new names, David Thewlis, and Sharon Duncan Brewster are also joining. So we're going to get basically every name from that original cast that was awesome. They're all coming back. And then you're also adding a couple new stars too. But they also released the synopsis of the film. Tom, do you mind reading that off while I pull up some of these images that we're looking at for this new film?
Fresh off the triumph of solving her first case, Enola Holmes follows on the footsteps of her famous brother, Sherlock, and opens her own agency, only to find that life as a female detective for hire isn't as easy as it seems. Resigned to accepting the cold realities of adulthood, same, honestly, she is about to close shop when a penniless matchstick girl offers Enola her first official job, to find her missing sister. The logline continues, but this case proves to be far more puzzling than expected, as Enola is thrown into a dangerous new world, from London's sinister factories and colorful music halls to the highest echelons of society, and 221B Baker Street itself. As the sparks of a deadly conspiracy ignite, Enola must call up the help of friends and Sherlock himself to unravel her mystery. The game, it seems, has found its feet again. That was fun.
Love that. Absolutely love that. So for those of you who did catch the first one, the first movie was essentially a coming-of-age story where she kind of had to prove herself as as a Holmes, basically, where she was. It wasn't a boy cried wolf scenario, but it was sort of, this is all happening, no one believes me, I have to prove it.
Okay.
And, very classic Hollywood trope that a lot of people are interested in. But
that's Prey.
Yeah, you're right. It is literally Prey that came out on Hulu earlier this month. But so Millie Bobby Brown is now playing Sherlock Holmes' little sister, who is more established, is more kind of recognized as under that family name. But now it seems like she's going to run into something else where she's going to have to call on her allies and her older brother to figure out what's going on. I think this looks super interesting. I know there's not a lot going on in these pictures, but this last one here that Deadline posted really catches my eyes, basically because it looks like she's being arrested. I don't know what's going on here, but it seems like that she's getting herself into something where she's even going to be against the law enforcement of that time to try to prove what she's doing and get to the bottom of what she's trying to solve. So anytime that she goes up against law enforcement, I think is exciting because it's literally her against the world at that point. So I'm really excited about this. Thomas, I know you're not really familiar with the franchise that they're building on Netflix here, but with Stranger Things being as successful as it is, as Millie Bobby Brown and Henry Cavill both being the names that they are, do you think that you'll check out this franchise, or does this seem like something that you'll kind of just let fly under the radar?
When does it come out?
That's a good question. I wonder if Deadline tells us here. I did not catch a release date.
Yeah, I don't
on
see
this,
one either.
but I want to say it was like 2023.
Okay.
Friday, November 4th. It's actually this fall.
Shoot, this year.
Yeah, it'll be.
Okay.
It's like 3 months away.
Yeah, I'll definitely watch. I'm gonna wait until that comes out so that I can watch both back to back and not have to wait.
Okay, nice. I like
I'm gonna
that.
binge it like you did Stranger Things.
I still have not seen Stranger Things actually.
Oh man, I set you up to lie right there, and you
Yeah,
didn't.
Good
man. I learned some
that.
tricks from Jennifer Walters. You know what I'm saying?
I like that.
In the
Yeah, you're
Holmes
setting me up,
family.
man. I like it, but I cannot tell a lie.
All right, Abe Lincoln.
But when it comes to movies coming out this year, there's one that it just won't go away, and I don't think anyone's upset about that. But Tom Cruise's Top Gun Maverick has been at the box office since the end of May, and it made another $1.5 million this past weekend. And it did something crazy. I know we talked last week. I don't know if you caught it on that audio exclusive. It was very elusive, kind of just lurking on the socials. But Top Gun had taken that 7th spot all time. It beat out Titanic. And now we see this week, it's actually number 6. It took over Avengers Infinity War spot. And as of this past weekend, it is now the number 6 movie all time at the domestic box office. This comes to us from Forbes. They said that Top Gun Maverick has earned another $1.55 million, which was a minus 22% drop from last week, to push its domestic cum to $679 million. That's just in the States. So this puts it above Avengers Infinity War, which made 678.8 and some change. So it's the 6th biggest domestic grosser of all time. But that's not all. Top Gun is not leaving theaters yet. Forbes is saying that it will earn in total this past weekend, because the full numbers aren't out yet. It'll earn about $5.4 million in its 12th weekend to get up to 683 in domestic dollars. Saying that even at a normal rate of descent from this point, it would put it at around 693 million total, which is a crazy amount of money, and it's about 15 million more than where they're sitting now. But the craziest part about it is that Black Panther, which is sitting at the number 5 spot, has only made 700 million. So if they're projected to hit about 693, another IMAX release to cap off, maybe the holiday season might push it over that $700 million mark, and they could become the 5th highest movie grossing in the States of all time. So Top Gun, still in theaters, still going strong. Have you seen it again since you saw it over the summer? Neither have I. Neither have I. I don't know who's still going to see this, but it's still pulling in a really great audience.
I honestly think there's a lot of people who hadn't seen it, and so they're like, well, it's still in theaters, I'll go see it. And then they're like, wow. And I do know plenty of people who's gone back and watched it multiple times. Yeah.
Right. Well, that's the
fair,
other side of this is that,
to be fair, I do live in a town with an Air Force base. They train the F-22 Raptors on. So, we were one of the first places in America to have F-22s because it's a natural training ground with the Gulf of Mexico.
Right.
So I'm very used to the flyboy lifestyle of Panama City. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of people here have definitely gone to see it. It's been probably a high grosser in this area.
See, I like that point, because you're right. Not everyone went to see this at once. It definitely relied on the word of mouth to continue to be successful. It did have a rather strong opening, but the legs came in the following weeks where people said, have you seen Top Gun Maverick? I didn't see it until the 3rd or 4th week that it was out, I think. I don't think I saw it right away. But yeah, the word of mouth has played a huge role in this. But the most interesting part is that it still has potential. It's for reference, this movie, Top Gun Maverick, is available to buy digitally and own on a digital platform like Vudu, Apple TV, or wherever you buy your streaming movies. It is available to purchase tomorrow.
What?
It is going to drop on streaming for digital download, not on Paramount Plus for free streaming with the subscription. That's going to come later. But to purchase to individually own as a digital download, it's available tomorrow on August 23rd. So this movie will simultaneously be running in theaters, and it will be available to download on streaming, just like Morbius was earlier this year.
Wow.
I don't know if
we've
seen this happen this year with a successful movie yet, but I haven't really been keeping track of when movies leave theaters and when they become available to digitally download, because this overlap we're seeing here, I feel like, is kind of an after effect of the pandemic. It's closing that gap in between a theatrical release and a digital availability, where there's no longer that gap where you're waiting after you saw a movie in theaters 3 months ago. You're waiting at your local Walmart for it to drop on that Tuesday morning for you to go pick up a physical copy so you can watch it. Mm-hmm. This movie's going to be available to watch at home before it's even gone from theaters. And that's without its streaming partner, Paramount Plus, being in the picture at all.
Yeah.
This movie has just become that successful that they don't want to pull it from theater screens yet.
It is.
How do you feel about that? It's on 3 consecutive months at the theater. How often?
Listen,
I feel like we never see that anymore.
We don't. And I think that's why it's doing as well as it is. I think this is Tom Cruise saying, hey, listen, the old way isn't as bad as everyone makes it out to be, right?
Right.
The difference is not every movie has Tom Cruise. Not every movie, and here's the key, is a sequel. You know how Oscar-winning movies are usually originals and then sequels get ignored?
Yeah.
Blockbusters are usually coming out of nowhere for an original movie and then become sequelized as a franchise. And then that's what people go back for.
Yeah.
I think he has created something amazing with Top Gun Maverick. The writers, directors, the cast, the crew, everyone involved, fucking amazing. I mean, genuinely an amazing movie that feels so different than everything else that you see these days. It's kind of just a classic movie. Like, the plot may be simple, but guess what? It doesn't matter. It's all about the emotion that we're bringing to you.
The plot is so simple. You can understand it at any age. Like, they literally don't even tell you who the bad guys are. It's just a place. They don't ever name a country or Russia, a person or... I don't even know if they get that specific. Like, they just say somewhere on the other side of the world. Like,
I thought they had a specific location they had to go into.
Yeah, I don't know if they ever named it, but like they were very obscure with like who they were even up against. Yeah. And so like it's you had the basic, continuation of the guy trying to catch the girl with Jennifer Connelly. By the way, Paul Bettany's wife, voice of the Karen suit in Spider-Man Homecoming. Always weird seeing her with another man. Because she's the AI other half to Jarvis. But that whole side of the story was so well done and didn't feel like it was reaching or desperate or anything like that. As far along as it had come since the first movie, that was such a natural progression of that relationship. And we were talking earlier with She-Hulk of explaining things away with one line. She basically explained her entire living situation with her ex-husband and her daughter within like a line and a half, and they were on to the next scene. So this movie definitely knew what it was doing. It was efficient in its storytelling, and it was heartfelt. And like you said, it had the deep emotional cuts. I think that went a long way, is that because I feel like somewhere in this movie, almost anyone can find a point to relate to. And as much as I loved calling this the perfect like American dream movie to see on Memorial Day, it kind of was, because there's a reason it's become the 6th highest grossing film in America, is because Americans connect to this movie and they find something to love about it.
Yeah. Who doesn't love airplanes?
Man, that's another thing I've noticed is since seeing Top Gun Maverick, I'm watching like every jet fly by. I'm just trying to just picturing like Tom Cruise up there just I loved watching the practical stunts of him actually like steering an airplane. Crazy.
Yeah, I mean it's super crazy. You know what also is super crazy? They just, right before we went live, they dropped images in the toy section at Walmart of Ironheart's armor in Wakanda Forever. So here we have the toy, the cheap I call it the cheap version of the toy where they don't put the full paint job into it. Looks very, very similar to, if you're watching us live, I'm scrolling to this down here, a combination between her Mark II, which looks a lot like Iron Man, in that it's the same color scheme, utilizing the same geometry in the head and in the arc reactor area. And then Mark III is basically her classic combo of black, pink, and gold. I'm, in the toy, it's like a mix between the two. In the image, it's a lot more like a Mark I that's really well done. I think we've seen set photos of Mark I's that are really bad. But
I think we've seen set photos of something that's like maybe an earlier rendition of this. I think this might be a more refined version of the suit. I think the images we saw previously are kind of like a Mark I kind of, scraps in a cave prototype like Tony Stark. And then this will be the more refined version once she actually gets to link up with Shuri in Wakanda. I'm sure there's some vibranium built into this. And I'm sure Shuri had some influence in how it was built. So I like that it's a really slick combination of the two. You can tell from that promo image, not the actual figure itself, but from the shot of her next to Shuri, that it's a lot bulkier and has some size to it. So I'm really excited about that we'll have kind of a heavier kind of brute hitter, maybe. But I mean, regardless of what comes out of this, this does look really, really cool and doesn't seem too derivative of Iron Man either. It's like, other than the name, I mean, you really wouldn't get Iron Man from this. It does seem like its own thing. So I get
Gundam vibes.
Yeah. So, Gundam, kind of like maybe Edge of Tomorrow, kind of the exoskeleton suits they had.
And that's kind of what you want. You want to invoke sci-fi while paying homage to Iron Man at the same time. Exactly. I love that they don't have an arc reactor, like a standard arc reactor. They have what looks like a section that would be an arc reactor, like it's lit up blue, but it's not circle. It doesn't have Iron Man symbol. It's like, by the way, here's this.
Right, like the main, as of right now at least, the main point that they're paying homage to Iron Man is in the name. So like, you don't see it come through in the look right now. So I know there's going to be some story there, but I like that it's not just a carbon copy. Especially with what we're getting from other shows like Hawkeye and Miss Marvel, where you're getting these new kid heroes that are kind of inspired by another one. I like that they're staying consistent with this theme of like, okay, yeah, it is going to derive from this legacy hero that but also it's really not going to be that at all. This seems like it's going to follow that path. I'm pretty happy about that.
I am as well. I'm very excited for Wakanda Forever, bringing it back to November 22nd.
I thought it was earlier than that. I want to say it's
November 18th.
There it is. Yeah. Yes.
We got there. We made
it. All right. Nice.
Hey, that wraps the news here, man. Like, look at us doing an efficient-ish show. Surprising. Ish. Very key word. We still have time to screw it up. Where can everyone find this podcast on social media? I hear good old dog in the back asking, arf, arf. You can find all of our links at Linktr.com/LightsThunderAction. That gets you our Facebook, LightsThunderAction Show, our Instagram at LightsThunderAction, all one word, no hyphens, no spaces, our YouTube channel where we post clips sometimes, LightsThunderAction! And then our Twitter, where we are most active these days at LTA Podcasting. That is an action verb. LTA PODCASTING. JRB, where can everyone find you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter at JRBDirect, and you can find me on Serialized and Letterboxd at JRBDirect_direct. If you want to see all my latest thoughts on what I'm watching, including the latest TV shows like She-Hulk and The Old Man on Hulu, or the latest movies on Letterboxd. So check me out on any of those places. Thomas, what about you? Where can all these folks find your handsome face on the socials?
You can find me everywhere right now at TCRochesterACT. That is TCRochesterACT. Very excited for this week. This week's the week, bro. We talked about it a little bit. Corsicana drops August 26th this Friday in theaters, and I'm going to be in Houston for the premiere this weekend. Super excited. Got to get my suit ready. Got to make everybody look bad. I'm just kidding. I'm trying not to look bad myself. It's really my only goal whenever I put on fancy clothes is don't look bad in your fancy clothes. JRB, what kind of recommendations do you have for everybody? Or what do you got coming up you're going to pay attention to?
Something that I just watched yesterday with my fiance it's on Netflix. It's called Untold, This Girlfriend Who Didn't Exist. It is a 2-part documentary on the story of Manti Te'o. For those who don't know, Manti Te'o was a star linebacker for Notre Dame. He came from Hawaii. He moved to the States to go to school at Notre Dame for football and eventually joined the NFL. But in doing so, he got roped into a hoax of a fake persona. He was catfished, essentially. He's one of the first real-world examples of catfishing, I guess. And so this 2-part documentary kind of it shares his side of the story and how it happened. But interestingly enough, it also interviews the guy who did it all, and put him through all that. And it shows the interviews like side by side throughout the 2-part documentary. So super interesting take. You get both sides of the story like right out in the open, and you get to learn exactly what happens. And get to see like how the public reacted to it along the way. So really well pieced together, super well done. And it seemed like the first installment in like a series of like sports documentaries that Netflix is going to be doing. It had a really cool like fanfare thing at the beginning where it was showing a bunch of sports. So it might be the start of like a series that they're going to do. But yeah, it was titled Untold, The Girlfriend That Didn't Exist.
Well, I'm seeing that it debuted in 2021, featuring a collection of different documentaries breaking down stories behind the biggest sports.
Oh, are there already other ones?
It sounds like it is, including the 2004 NBA brawl, the infamous one, Malice at the Palace.
Oh, you know what?
Yeah.
I think this might be like a continuation of that then, because this was technically categorized as like a film, whereas I think what you're referring to was like a collection of like episodes.
Yeah, that's what
I think. Okay, that makes more sense. So I think what they're doing now is they're breaking off and actually doing full-on productions rather than half-hour specials. So that's even cooler. So this might be the first step into that, because this one came out just in the past couple weeks in 2022, the Manti Te'o one.
I'm gonna have to watch this. I recently saw on, I want to say it was ESPN Plus, like one of a documentary, like an hour-long documentary on this same subject. So I'm really intrigued to watch this version, because like back then they didn't have the guy who did it all to talk to.
Right. No, well, that was the most interesting part, is that they got both Manti and they got Renaya, the guy who did it, to agree to sit down and do a full tell-all interview on it. And they don't sit together. It's separate interviews, but they tell everything that happened, and you get both sides during each event that they cover. So it's really, really, really cool.
Yeah. Gotta watch who you talk to out there on that internet.
Yeah, definitely. We've come a long way since then, but yes, even watching it now,
have we
really feel for him.
Are we sure?
Yeah, we don't need to get into that tonight.
We're not going to get into that.
Thomas, what do you have to recommend to people? I know you've got your own film coming out in the next week. Yeah. So obviously we're going to be keeping our eyes out for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Go see Corsicana. You can go to CorsicanaMovie.net to see where it is. We have a slow rollout coming along, starting in Texas, a couple in Fort Lauderdale. I know I got homies out in Fort Lauderdale. That movie sounds so white, but I know I got friends in Fort Lauderdale area that can go out to see them. I will be sending out some of those links to people closest to me. But yes, there's a few different places, Missouri, pretty much where there are people from the production that live. They're going to try and get them in those theaters so friends and family can see, and then branch out from there, because distribution is a fun fun time here in the independent filmmaking community. So very excited for that. I'm also going to recommend reading. I have finished 2 Star Wars books in the last 7 days. They're re-listens, but it's the High Republic section, and I'm about to read tonight the next 5 comics before the next book that comes, that is in the chronology of order. And then after that, I'm going to read the next 5 and so on and so forth until I end phase 1. Phase 2, that's right, they name them in phases, is a prequel, and it's going to be coming out, I want to say November 21st is the first book drop for that. That sounds like a Tuesday, yeah. So that should be it, November 21st or 22nd of this year. It's going to be a fun time, and it's really good. And also read comic books because they're awesome. I have been reading the latest Darth Vader, and let's just say it made my dreams really weird reading, like staying up for 2 extra hours every night reading comics this past weekend. So, I had a lot of weird dreams about Padme killing Vader, so let's just...
Oh.
Yeah, I know. It was a fun time. Like, what can I say? Art seeps its way into a dream sometimes and makes up fun movies that don't exist. Wow, what if, right? Well, what if we ended the show, guys, gals, and my pals? It's that time of the day.
What if we shut up already?
Yeah, basically, that's how I feel. You know, I feel like I talk all the time and I talk too much. But as always, there could be no show without the Iron Man variant to my right now. The world famous journalist John Ross Bradford, bringing eloquence and wit to this series and throwing me off topic and somehow getting me back on. Thank you for that. Thank you to Terry McIver and David Thompson for their work behind the scenes, and my nephew out there editing these for us when he has the free time. Thank you to the HWWS WebTV family for supporting us and for carrying us on the network. Everybody, shout out Pop right now. We love you, bud. Most importantly, thank you to our fans that join us weekly, whether you're watching on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, or listening via Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, or Spotify. We appreciate you spending your time with us.
Absolutely, yes. Please be sure to like, follow, subscribe, drop us a comment, leave us a review, and give us 5 stars. Only, of course, if you feel we are worthy.
Worthy. As always, I'm TCR.
I'm JRB.
And this has been episode 97 of LTA. Thank you for joining. We'll see you next time. Cal.